Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Marlon Brando is a big reason why this movie both happened, and also why it is the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. For a man who was already wearing an earpiece being fed his lines, I think that's... I think it's fair to say of Marlon
An earpiece
Brando.
you can see in the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's hidden by his Pope outfit, so that's, but yes, you can see it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was trying to reconcile with this movie, it's kind of this beautiful poetic thing where you have Marlon Brando being a very famous actor who is only told yes for longer than he's been told no in his life, okay? I understand that messes with your brain. But on the one hand, you have Apocalypse Now, where he shows up on set, he's the wrong, weight, he doesn't agree to do anything that he's asked to do, and Francis Ford Coppola is able to turn that into a masterpiece. And then you have this movie on this side where it's all of the same things from Marlon Brando, and it's what you expected Apocalypse Now to be. So my thesis is this is the bad Apocalypse Now, I guess.
Right. Well, and what's interesting to make that comparison, because Apocalypse Now gets brought up a lot in all the behind-the-scenes stuff, every article about it. Apparently that was the fact that Moreau is a Kurtz-like figure was appealing to Marlon Brando, which... You would think he would try to do it better this time instead.
Yeah.
And we'll get into some of the reasons why in a minute. But in the case of both Apocalypse Now and in this movie, there is a documentary that is arguably more interesting than the actual movie. And in this case, that documentary is Lost Souls, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, which I watched last night and is also a fever dream.
Yeah. I didn't know it existed till you emailed and said you were watching the doc, and I think I'm going to have to set aside some time this week to watch it.
I will warn you that there's a lot of interviews with Richard Stanley, the original director of this movie. We'll get into that. And he is also a pretty creepy and weird dude. And he has a strange monotone that will haunt your nightmares.
I gotta see what else he directed because I'm not familiar with that name really beyond this.
So the thing is, this movie kind of tanked his career, and then he didn't really come back to directing until the next movie he directed was 23 years later.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and is that Color Out of Space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he directed some short films in the interim, but went off the reservation on this movie, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I read in one of the trivia things that there was a rumor that he actually had the makeup artists put him in costume so he could be an extra to watch in the background, after he was fired. He was 4 days in and he was fired from the set. And then he basically just stuck around in costume. Now, that has not been, confirmed.
Oh, no, that's the thing. It has been confirmed.
It is confirmed?
It's 100% true. And in fact, they point out which one he is in a bunch of the shots.
They point it out, too.
Yeah. No, so in the documentary, because the documentary is recent, ish. It's in the last, 20 years as opposed to in the mid-90s. So he actually talks about it where we got... There's so much to talk about. It's hard to even sell just the insanity.
Yeah, but we definitely need to talk about this. This is weird.
Fuck Christ. There's so many things. Because so there's this. This movie was a cavalcade of fuck ups. From start to finish, everything about it is just oh yeah, that was never gonna work. We have this indie horror director. He had done a bunch of really small but successful, low budget movies that was getting some buzz, and it was all right, let's make the jump to a bigger budget. And then because the property is enough of a name because it's H.G. Wells, the studio took the script that Stanley had written, and they liked that script, and then they tried to attach Roman Polanski to direct. Now that would have been bad. That would have
Yeah.
been the wrong choice just because fuck him.
Yeah.
But in the process of that, they tried to attach Marlon Brando to it, and he wasn't sure about it. Richard Stanley got a meeting and was able to, through some fuckery, get him one-on-one by way of Marlon Brando constantly cranking up the AC so that the exec from the studio that was with them for the meeting fell asleep because she mentioned that was just the thing that happens when it gets too cold. So he convinced Marlon Brando to be like, yeah, I'll back you on this movie. You sound like a weird dude.
Which is the Marlon Brando of it all. Really.
Exactly. So they were like, yeah, fuck it, sure. Why not? And with Marlon Brando attached, the budget ballooned. And so that's the starting point on it. And this is actually where it's like, this might actually go okay. The budget's getting a little too big for what this director probably was capable of without an infrastructure in place. And I think that the ultimate like, spoiler for my pitch, ultimately they should have put a decent assistant director with him because he had a vision, but he was used to being like on a tiny set where like everyone is doing everything and like it's all hands on deck and everyone has to be passionate about everything. Like when you're on a small production, like you like it's a labor of love. And like if you're on a big production and no one fucking wants to be there, like you need people who can like bark orders and stay organized and do all the things, because like your lead actors aren't doing that for you, which they would on a small production where they have as much skin in the game. Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.